Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back at it again to talk about another gacha system in another game that's getting some updates, that's getting some changes. And unfortunately, it's not the games that you're thinking about. It's not Silver Palace fixing its 25-75 and its ability to lose a bunch of 50-50s or 25-75s in a row. It's not Arknight's Enfield with its dog shit 120 pity that expires in between banners and a weapon banner that looks like it was invented by Satan himself. No, it's Blue Archive, the game for... There's a lot of weirdos that play it, self-admittedly. The game for an interesting crowd of people that happens to have a very large player base, changing its gacha and the design of it for its 5.5 year, 5.5. Read this in your head for a second. How are you supposed to say this? How do you say this shit out loud? I'm just wondering. Just think about it for a second. That's why I got stuck. That's not English. Anyways, for its 5.5 year anniversary, for its fifth half, no, it'd be its 10th half anniversary. This would be in its 11th half anniversary. Yeah, for Blue Archive's 11th half anniversary, they have a new gacha system coming alongside all of this stuff. And this is the breakdown of it here, because there is a bit of a reaction across the space, or particularly Blue Archive players to these changes. Let me actually show you an excerpt from the Steam page for this game following the reveal of this 11th half anniversary gacha update. Yeah, that's over 400, maybe 500 negative reviews commenting on the fact that they might have ruined the game. This is probably something that's going to get changed, that's going to get updated. And when the topic of gacha systems has become so top of mind across the space, with more and more competitors, right, NTE, AKE, blah, 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 coming in, shaking things up with systems that are just worse, like Silver Palace or Arknight's Enfield, or better, like NTE, but then that game just doesn't have the gameplay to really make people stick, right? This is an old game, and really old game, 5 years old, older than Genshin Impact, some could say, that's trying to do something new, but they're getting a lot of shit for it. So we gotta see, what are the details surrounding this? So, to know what's new, you gotta know what Blue Archive had before. So before, they had this spark system. And so essentially, this is how a spark system works. It's like building up a pity that you can see live as you do every pull. Each pull, right, is like 1 point, and then getting you 200 total pulls across a bunch of different banners allows you to exchange those 200 points for a unit. And it doesn't count as like pulling the unit from the gacha. It counts as you redeeming your 200 points for any of the current rate-up characters across all the banners. And so this is how a spark system would essentially work. It's like in Woo-Wah, right? Every time I pulled, it would fill up a little bar over here. And then once that bar is filled from pulling 200 times, I can like click it, boom, and then I can select Yang Yang, Liu Kersen, or Lene. That's basically what sparks are. And a lot of people, in some ways, can like that system, because the main upside of that system is this. If you don't get any rate up within 200 pulls, you just use your 200 points to exchange it for, well, in Wuthering Waves example, right, one of these 3 characters. But, and this is where, right, you get to have your cake and eat it too, if you get one rate up or get lucky and get more within 200 pulls, you can use your points to exchange it for other rate up characters that you didn't get, or dupes. So you kind of see what's going on over here, right? This system gives you a much higher potential for winning. Because if you get any character, right, before the 200, you essentially can use your 200 spark to go get the other unit that's running right now that you might have not had before. The best way that I could say to describe this, right, is that this spark system reminds me of just pulling for Woo-Wah units. What do you do in Wuthering Waves? You spend, or you save up about 140 pulls to guarantee a unit. True, right? Like how in Blue Archive, you'd save up 200 pulls to get the character. In Woo-Wah, you save up 140 for the unit. But let's say you win the 50-50 on this bitch. Great. Now you got 70 pulls left over. Go spend them on the weapon. That's what it feels like in Woo-Wah. When you win the early, you get the 5-star character before you're supposed to. You get lucky. You get to have a little something on top. And similarly with the spark system, right? I assume it feels like you can get lucky and then get a little something on top. And that's what people like. People like feeling like they won. They like feeling like they gained the house. Everyone wants to win versus the casino, but the casino usually is the winner. And so, in Woo-Wah, when you win the early 50-50, you feel like the winner because you get the weapon, even though you feel like you shouldn't have. You're like, ooh, I'm a little naughty over here. Ooh, I got something I wasn't supposed to get. Probably the same sort of vibe over here if you get an early 5-star before the spark. Right? In the new system, though, that is maybe no more. Let's take a look at it. So in the new system, there's no more spark. And every 100 pulls has a 50% chance to get a rate up. And then if you lose the 50-50, then by 200 pulls, it is guaranteed. Basically similar to the gacha system of other famous games like Genshin or Honkai. And each time you get a rate up, the pity resets to 0 with no spark. So this is the situation over here. This system at a baseline is basically like the same as Genshin or Woo-Wah, but worse. From a numerical pull count. This is basically like if Genshin had a 100 pity. This is like if Woo-Wah had a 100 pity. This is like if HSR or ZZZ had a 100 pity. That's essentially it. However, I don't know who you can lose to on the Blue Archive banners. And if you can lose to other limited characters on the Blue Archive banner, maybe that's not as bad. But maybe you're losing to standard characters over here, and that would suck. Right? And the main thing that's consistent is that each time you get a rate up, the pity resets, and that there's also a guarantee. But this is kind of like the difference over here. In this game, in this new system, there's not necessarily just downsides. If you were only throwing 100 pulls and then you win the 50-50, you have now gotten the character that you wanted cheaper than you would have gotten it in the old system. And this is my personal take. This sets a reliable floor for what you're going to get in 200 pulls. With the new system, you're guaranteed to get two 5-star units or whatever, right, within 200 pulls. But it could just be one rate up. In the old system, in 200 pulls, you're only guaranteed one rate-up character and no other 5-stars. But in this one, you're guaranteed 2 minimum. Do you see how this new system isn't necessarily, at least from what I'm reading, I could be reading a mistranslation or incorrect, but across 2 sources, it seems the same. This simply just sets your floor higher, but it limits your potential winnings. Basically, gamblers should enjoy the old system more, while somebody that likes to have maybe lesser possible wins, but also less possible losses might like the new system more. And this is what I personally think is going on when it comes to Blue Archive based off the decision happening over here. There's probably going to be Hoyoverse type players, maybe Wuthering Waves players, that are going to be a lot more interested in this gacha system simply due to the fact that it's a lot more recognizable compared to other modern day peers. And so the end result is, especially with what we've seen Blue Archive doing on like the mainstream advertisement side, they got like Fob Master for a collab or something like that. I think Blue Archive is trying to appeal to way more of a general gacha audience. And one step of that transition is to have a gacha system that looks more like what Hoyo, Genshin, Woo-Wah, ZZZ, what they have. And I think that's their goal. I think that's their aim. Have something that the mainstream audience understands far, far, far more. The old BA system has previous 5-stars. You could get, right? You could get up to 20 5-stars while also building the spark. In a similar vein, you could get 0, right? Here, you could get 25 stars on the way up to 200. You could, right? You could also get 0. And I guess that's sort of like the difference over here. This sets a way higher floor, right? Because you go from 0 5-stars on the way to 1 5-star on the way, minimum. And I think that's where maybe the appeal is supposed to be for new players. But what's that going to do to your existing ones? What's it going to do to your existing players when you replace the system that has this gigantic upside of winning? You could get 25 stars on the road to 200 spark and then also get the spark as well. You have the capability to be a big winner in Blue Archive through the gacha system. But in the new system, you don't have that much potential for winning. Why? Because the house needs to get their W one way or another. And when the house is guaranteeing you more for your entry ticket price without even gambling, then it looks like the house is taking stuff off the best case scenario to fuel that extra padding that they're putting in. And objectively, for a lot of players, even without official rates or anything, they're just saying this is a downright worse system. podcast. I would view this a lot like, y'all know jobs, right? That pay by commission. Think used car salesman. There's a reason why those guys really heavily push you to pick something up, drive it off the lot, and pay them some money, right? Every time you walk in. They get something called commission if they're able to get this sale from you. However, right? That's a very feast or famine sort of job. If you're not able to like get the sales, boy, you are not having a good time, right? You are losing a bunch of money. You are like, life is rough. And I think that this system over here really will damage, right, the good times when your sales are doing good. But this system's always also going to guarantee you way less worst cases in the long run. And think about it this way. What are the reasons that you quit gacha games? You typically quit gacha games when you feel like you have been tremendously fucked over by the gacha, when you got horrifyingly unlucky, right? With either like echo rolls or like equipment rolls or like gacha rate pulls, stuff like that. When you get to a point where you feel like you're just getting fucked in like 35 different ways by the game and you just don't really want to play anymore, well, that's because you've been getting the worst case scenario a bunch of times, right? And this system, I do believe, is supposed to limit those worst case scenarios and make them not as frequent. So that there's less of these game quit angles. But is removing those game quit angles worth alienating the existing player base that's not going to get their highs anymore? Guys, you're basically saying you're taking away the player's drugs. Like, no, you don't get any more meth. No, there is no more getting like 10 5-stars in 1-200 spark. There's no more of that shit. No, we're taking away the cocaine. Like, instead, you're just getting like, you're just getting an Adderall. All right, you're just getting a coffee. Like, you're gonna be way more manageable. All right, but like, you know, you're not gonna get like the crash isn't gonna be as crazy. That's what it feels like. And I think it's a good step towards modernization. But it's very obvious this was not done in the right way. And I don't think the approach by the Blue Archive developers is a terrible, awful idea. I think having a system that limits losses while also, you know, in some ways potentially curbing winnings isn't the worst thing ever. But when it's something your company has been doing for 5.5 years, for your 11th half anniversary, removing that and removing the potential winnings, removing the upside, the jackpot. You've removed the jackpot from the lottery, but you've made sure that the minimum winnings, they went up from 20 bucks to 30. On average, it's better for people, but the top winners are going to be the ones that get mad. And it seems like that might be the vocal minority. Maybe it's a vocal majority over here. But that's what happens when you make such a sweeping change. After your game has been live for the greater half of a decade, there's probably going to be some old heads, some conservatives. And I don't even mean it in the political sense, like Blue Archives conservatives, just because they're old heads. That aren't going to be very happy. And so I think one of the reasons for why there's a lot of doom posting and anger surrounding the Blue Archive update is apparently because of this. Apparently Nexon hired an ex-Electronic Arts executive, Patrick Sutherland, to be the new executive chairman. The same Patrick Sutherland who apparently said, don't like it, don't buy it during Battlefield 5. I think that is kind of based. That seems kind of based to me. I'm gonna be honest. Yeah, if you don't if you don't like the game, don't fucking buy it. I think that is fair. I think that is fair, unless he made the game. Is Battlefield 5 a shit game? Oh, okay. Then yeah. Great job. Great. He said the truth then. He was just giving good advice. So a lot of people, I think, are attributing the gacha changes. They're attributing the gacha changes over to him. And I guess this is the take. This looks like a white dude, and like this is the JP stream, and like Nexon's a Korean company. So like maybe I haven't seen enough yet to make a judgment on that. It's a little confusing to me. This is the last thing. Let me just show you all the games Nexon has. They've got a lot of games, and they're some of the biggest ones. Hopefully, I've been able to provide a perspective over here of everything that's going on. I don't want to say one is better than the other until I obviously see the actual numerical changes involved. But at a baseline, I don't think this is like the demon shit that people are claiming it is. But who knows?